Once again, the cookie apocalypse can got kicked down the road. Do you feel like publishers and advertisers are ready at this point, given the fact that they've been given a lot of warnings ahead of time, or are they still not ready?
I mean, I don't think anybody is going to be ready until we need to be in a broad sense. I think we've built our industry on the concept of the cookie. There are so many businesses that have been built up around it. And so it's hard to get people to change their behavior. We know that that is what marketers are trying to do all the time, right? So you need to spend the time to drive that behavior shift. I think we're seeing really exciting momentum, even with the recent kind of delay back to 2025. I think a lot of companies are starting to realize that not only is this something that is inevitable, the timeline is what it is, but it's going to happen.
Right.
And as a society, we know it's going to happen. Consumers are demanding it. Consumers are the ones that are spending all of the money on all of our businesses and that are fueling our economy. And so we need to be listening to consumers and respecting them. We also need to be ensuring the longevity of our ecosystem, right? The open internet is so important. And advertising is the way that all of these businesses and the majority of these businesses are funded. We don't want to go to a world where everything is subscription based and vast swaths of our community are not able to have access to information. That is not good for society. We also don't want a case where the walled gardens get full ownership of any information that we're able to get. So you need this independence and we need the competition that exists within our industry to be able to deliver the content, the experiences, the entertainment, all of the things that as a society we value from the internet, from TV, from all of our media channels. And so we need to be doing whatever it takes to get our industry to a point where we can have consumer privacy and consumer respect, as well as addressable advertising that is going to deliver ROI that the brands need to continue to invest in the internet. Those things are critical to not only our ecosystem, but to our society.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
Super excited to be chatting today with Johanna Bauman, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at PubMatic. So the fun thing about chatting with you is the side of the ecosystem that you're on is you're marketing tech and a platform to other marketers, right? So it's like you have to deal with the marketing challenges as a B2B marketer.
Yep.
So I'd love to hear what emerging trends you think are shaping the future of technology marketing, given the fact that that's your role is to market your technology into the ecosystem.
Sure. And Kevin, thanks so much for having me today. I think one of the things that's most interesting to me about technology marketing is how old school it actually is. So I've been in this industry for about a decade and a half now. And I think the most impactful channels that I've seen work well, especially for companies like PubMatic that are really trying to reach that enterprise client base, are really kind of very analog. And so it's things like in-person events, content, PR, email, ways to really engage the individual at the other end of the transaction. We actually met in person a couple of weeks ago at Possible, which was a kind of massive blowout event, the second annual event that they've put on. And it is everyone from across the ecosystem just coming together to have a cocktail, to have conversations, and to really get to know one another, not just on a professional level, but really on a personal level as well. And I think in a recap, Brian Morrissey from the Rebooting said it very well when talking about the Possible event. And he said that there's an irony to all of these software companies coming together and relying so heavily on the most analog channels of all, which is the cocktail party. But that is where relationships are built. And the foundation of tech marketing, when you're marketing a platform to kind of senior level folks at these major companies, is that relationship. People want to do business with people they like and with people that they trust. And so I think that's one of the most interesting aspects of B2B technology marketing. But of course, we are at the forefront of innovation. And so I've also been leaning into things like AI. So relying very heavily on ChatGPT and other kind of innovation areas just to really offload some of the more kind of tactical aspect of my role. So whether it's kind of creating formulaic content like a press release, getting that foundation in ChatGPT, and then using the brain power that we have across our marketing organization to add those exciting elements to make it a little bit different. So I think we can get about 70% of the way there on some of those types of assets with AI. And we're also using it to onboard kind of RFIs and find ways that we can scale a lot of the things that we do as marketers. So we are responding to more and more inbound inquiries from customers. A lot of it is formulaic. It's just finding the information from a repository and pushing it out. And so we can use technology to automate a lot of those tasks that were just kind of taking a lot of time, but didn't require a lot of creativity, or the things that as marketers, we love to spend time on, creating something new, doing something different to break out of the box and to really highlight our brand. So I think finding ways to do the personal with the cocktail party, but also lean into new technologies and finding that balance has been what's exciting.
Yeah, I happen to be an investor in Possible, so I was super excited that it was such a success for the second time out of 2 times so far. And I will agree with you, people buy from people, right? The companies are what's on the paperwork, but in the end, people buy from people. And I really liked their pitch of, curating the right audiences, putting them in the right place at the right time, so they can, have that face-to-face conversation. But one of the dynamics that I think B2B marketers face is, even though we like to imagine that there's the decision maker, right? The reality is there's often a lot of internal influencers within an organization. And sometimes those people are at events, and they may be at different events than the decision maker who has the big title, right? And the decision maker who has the big title delegates some of that decision-making process and checking off all the check boxes to other people, right? And so how do you think as a marketer, because you want to make sure that you're not just going after that person whose name is going to be on the paperwork, but that you're also communicating and educating those other people who might be influential in the decision. So how do you think about that? Does that impact your event strategy, your Marcom strategy in general, your PR and content strategy?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it impacts everything. So we do think about that full funnel of the engagement at a client. So we've got our executive influencers. So those are the folks that we'll put in front of our CEO and our CROs. And so that is about building that senior level relationship to drive influence at the top. But we know that even once a deal gets signed, even if we're able to leverage those relationships to get a deal signed, you still need the people on the ground that are actually going to do the work and use your technology. And so in advertising technology, the industry that we're in, it is not just you select one vendor and that is who you work with for everything. There is a lot of competition. And so you constantly need to be thinking about selling in your value prop, your capabilities, and your service levels across all levels of an organization. And so we do that with different events, right? So there are some events where our senior level folks are going and engaging with the senior level contacts at our clients. But there's also more of our junior level folks. So the people on our commercial team, our CSMs, our customer success managers, who are going in and talking to the media buyers and traders at an agency. And we need to be facilitating and building those relationships as well. And so all of that comes from a really integrated full funnel marketing campaign. So there's the relationship aspect, there's continuing to push content out, there's email, there's lunch and learns, there's all types of touch points that we need to be driving to not only drive that interest, engagement, and even conversion at the top level, but also be thinking about how do we actually drive usage of our technology and grow business over time. And a lot of that comes down to service level. So those are things that maybe traditionally will sit outside of the purview of marketing, but it all comes back to how we think about building our brand. And so we work really closely with our commercial teams to make sure that our service levels are kind of the top of the industry.
So would you say that service level is one of the big differentiators for you in a fairly crowded market? And how should B2B marketers think about the sort of share of wallet issue that they have, right? So in your category, there is essentially a share of wallet, right? And part of it is KPI driven and part of it is service driven. So how should B2B marketers and marketers in general think about that struggle for share of wallet, where it's not like a honeymoon trip where there's only one and it happens and that's it, you're gone. You lost the opportunity if you didn't get the booking.
Yep. Yeah. We're working on this every day, day in and day out. So I definitely do think, to your first question, that our service levels are a key differentiator for PubMatic. So when we think about what differentiates us, customer control and partnership is kind of the terminology that we use, but it really comes down to ensuring that our customers can look to us as a technology partner that they can build their businesses on. And so we think about it in the ways that we kind of develop our platform and the levers that we allow our clients to pull to control how they want to use our technology to drive their business outcomes. It comes to the relationships that they have with their commercial reps and their partners and the product team within our organization, so we can innovate together and really kind of figure out what's going to move their businesses and their clients' businesses forward. So that kind of partnership element is definitely a key one. But at our core, we're a technology company, right? So our integrated platform that brings all of the technological pieces that our clients need, whether it's kind of header bidding technology for publishers, whether it's thinking through addressability and how to incorporate all of the different identifiers and data providers, or if it's about thinking about how do we get into commerce media or how can we operate more efficiently. We bring all of that together under one core infrastructure so that our clients can like pick and choose which aspects of the platform they want. And then we constantly innovate. So we are thinking ahead of the market, and we're kind of using our technology and our innovation as a way to propel our business and our clients' businesses forward. So from a differentiation standpoint, that's kind of how we think about those three aspects. And that really comes down to the technology and the partnership. But for B2B businesses, I think we need to be thinking about our product, right? My background is from a product marketing side. So I came up through the product marketing track into a marketing role where now, as the CMO, I oversee the entire kind of marketing organization. But it really comes down to the products that we're delivering, right? We need to be providing value to our customers. That needs to be first and foremost. And everything that we do from a marketing standpoint, from the storytelling, from the activations, needs to be reinforced with the technology that we're delivering. So we need to be working really closely with both our commercial counterparts for how do we engage and delight clients, but also with our product counterparts. We need to understand the technology, how it works, what's different about it, what's unique, and how is it delivering value. And those are the points that we need to dial up in our messaging.
Are there any specific campaigns or sort of that had strategies that drove those campaigns that you can sort of point to that you were particularly proud of, or that other B2B marketers could learn from?
Sure. I think there's a great one that highlights a lot of the points that I've been talking about. And that's one that we released in 2022. It was kind of the first brand campaign that I worked on at PubMatic in my nearly 8-year tenure with the company. And it was at a time when we were kind of pivoting our positioning and our value prop to the market. So a little context on PubMatic for folks that don't know us. We were founded in 2006, really on the publisher side of the ecosystem, at a time when there were technology companies popping up to serve the advertisers as digital advertising and programmatic were becoming kind of more popular. But no one was really serving the needs of the publishers. And so we saw that opportunity, and our CEO and our chief innovation officer and our head of engineering, they're the founders of the company. They're still here leading our business. And so we really started on one side of the ecosystem. We were known as an SSP. We're one of the leading independent sell-side platforms in the ecosystem. But we've expanded our business as the market has evolved, right? It's been 17 years, or at that point when we did this campaign, it was 15 years. A decade and a half in an industry that moves as quickly as ours is a lifetime. And so we needed to think about how do we evolve our business to meet the needs of our clients where they are at that point and where we see the future. And so that was looking beyond kind of the core silo on the publisher side. We knew that to funnel more budgets into programmatic to support our digital publishers across the open internet when there was more competition from walled gardens. And the ecosystem was really at this kind of pivotal moment in its history. We needed to be leaning more into the buy side. We needed to be working with advertisers and agencies to get those budgets and prove to them the value that digital advertising on the open internet could provide. And so we started thinking through, what does that supply chain need to look like? And so in 2022, we were really in a prime innovation phase for our company. We were working on two of the biggest product launches in our company's history that we released last year in 2023 that really broke the confines of how we'd been known in market. And so one of those was Activate, which is a kind of SPO platform for buyers, enabling them to transact directly on our platform across our swath of CTV and video inventory, since we saw that the supply chain wasn't really working for these kind of premium direct deals between buyers and CTV. They wanted the automation and the data that programmatic could deliver, but they didn't want all of the fees associated. And so we saw that need, and we were building technology for that. We were also building Convert, which was breaking us into the commerce media landscape, creating a single technology platform that allowed retailers and their advertisers to do on-site and off-site and audience extension, including sponsored listings on our platform. And so those were not what are traditionally thought of as SSP technology, right? It was breaking us out of the molds that we had created for ourselves and really how the market knew us. And so we knew that we needed to start seeding some of the ideas ahead of those product launches. And so the idea was thinking about this concept of the supply chain of the future and how all of the kind of technology components, all of the businesses within our ecosystem needed to kind of work for the needs of our clients. And so we came up with this concept of built for you. So is the future of digital advertising built for you? I talked earlier about some of those differentiators. So a campaign needs to be authentic. It needs to be tied into your brand identity, what makes you unique, and what you are uniquely able to say. And so that was around this idea that we are building technology for our clients. I mentioned those kind of control levers that we give. That is a piece of it. Our integrated platform where clients can use different components of our tech stack. That was part of it. And so is this idea that we're building technology for our clients for their needs. We activated that across a variety of different channels, be it client interviews, landing page and email and paid promotion. We did a lot of content. So we did a white paper around the supply chain of the future and how buyers needed to think about their tech stack. And all of that led up to the product launches and kind of paved the path that we knew that we were going to be on.
Yeah, well, that's a great story, and the acronym SOUP still exists, right? I remember the first Terry Kawaja's first Lumascape, which he had even done in previous, companies. It wasn't called Lumascape at that point, but these ideas of the two sides, the DSPs, the SSPs, exchanges in the middle, and I think both sides have sort of tried to move into the middle, right? And the pipes now you have direct pipes connecting. So that clearly becomes an educational challenge, right, as a brand. And we had to pivot. It did it. We used to be a SaaS-based bid management platform, right? And then we ended up acquiring 11 marketing services firms as we moved more into the services side, because we had the unfortunate scenario of having Marin Software as a competitor, who I don't think has ever had a profitable quarter in their existence. But that's neither here nor there. But I sort of had to struggle with some of those same challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard when you're doing these big picture things to think data and analytics. But of course, so much of what we do is data analytics. So I'd love to pivot a little bit in more like how to use the data and analytics to inform your personal marketing decisions, especially for complex B2B marketing, right? Where it's not as easy as a shopping cart. Nobody says, oh, I'm adding PubMatic to my shopping cart, right? I mean,
yeah, it'd be nice if they did. I think the data and analytics side of B2B marketing is one of the kind of biggest challenges and things kind of looming over my head as I think about leading my organization and how do we kind of elevate and enhance our ability to execute the goals and the targets and KPIs that we have as marketers. And I know that this is a challenge that many B2B marketers face. There are tons of forums that I'm part of where we talk about these challenges pretty frequently. And so I think there's a few points and ideas that I have and that I think about pretty regularly. First is think about your objective. Every time you're starting to incorporate data and analytics and use it to inform your decisions, start with what you're trying to do. And so there are aspects of B2B marketing, particularly for SaaS companies, but even in things that we do in the enterprise world, around kind of account-based marketing or email, where we're trying to actually drive engagement, conversion, downloads of content, usage of some product features. And so there you're able to really track kind of customer acquisition cost, marketing qualified leads, sales converted leads, all of those metrics that I think traditional B2B marketers lean on pretty heavily. So there are aspects of our business where we focus on those kind of metrics, and it's really easy. You see if the conversion rates are going up, are they going down, are they better than you expected, and you're able to optimize and pivot as a result. The majority of what we do, particularly in our business, where a lot of our growth comes from our existing customers, and we're a platform business, so it's usage based, right? It's not like they're signing up for an annual deal and we know exactly how much revenue is coming in. So even that kind of ROI calculation and the revenue attribution can be a little bit challenging. So rather than spending hours upon hours and tons of resource on getting all of those calculations perfectly right, we're thinking more big picture. We're trying to drive influence. And so any activation that we do, be it an event, a piece of content that we're trying to get downloaded, an email campaign, where we know who we're trying to reach. We know the audiences that we need to engage and who those decision makers are, as we talked about earlier. And so we're able to assess whether our marketing activity is driving influence among those accounts or among those individual contacts. And so we're then able to optimize and determine where we need to invest more, where we need to invest less, where we need to pivot our strategy to optimize against that influence calculation. And so I think that has been really useful for us. And we don't need to be perfect. We just need to be getting better. We need to be improving, and we need to know what is actually moving our business forward. And so it all comes back to really being tied in to how your business operates, how you make money, who those decision makers are and how they need to be influenced, which channels work, which ones don't. And you're able then to evolve your strategies over time to be incrementally improving your marketing outcomes. So that's kind of how we're approaching it.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'd love to dig one layer deeper, because in B2B marketing, as in B2C as well, right? You've got that power customer. Maybe it's the top decile, maybe it's the top quartile, and they make all the difference, right? And so whether you think about them as a segment, or you almost create a B2B persona, right, around these people, these customers that drive top and bottom line much more, they over-index, right, against that. So has it been useful for you to either create a persona or create these segments and try to really think through how do we market against that predicted top decile, right? The ones who really matter. Or maybe it's even like top 5%, right, that make all the difference for you, and how that influences your strategy.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. What makes it challenging in our line of business is that we have so many different audiences that we're speaking to that require different types of communication and different types of touch points. So we have our traditional kind of omni-channel publishers. That's the audience that we know really well. And so we're able to kind of segment some of those top tier clients and engage them at certain levels. We're breaking into CTV. This is a new growth market for us. So we need to be engaging those streamers a little bit differently than we spoke to our traditional kind of web-based publishers. We're getting into the buy side, as I mentioned earlier. Engaging the holding companies is a totally different beast. And so we approach those more individually, creating custom strategies for each holdco. We're breaking through into advertiser direct, into retail media. And so some of that kind of single top tier cohort model doesn't really work for us. So we're able to create segments within those different categories and subsegments within, and we're able to kind of create custom narratives, custom channels, custom marketing programs for them. And we definitely do that. We also really looking at that top tier that is driving a lot of our business. We create completely bespoke marketing programs. So I mentioned earlier this differentiator around customer control and partnership. That partnership piece in terms of how we differentiate our business comes into how we think about our marketing strategies too. So sometimes we need to be kind of customizing things even more than at that segment level and really thinking through a unique individual strategies, kind of ABM on steroids, about what levers do we need to pull? What content do we need to create? What kind of exciting touch points and aspects of delight can we deliver to different contacts and different levels of influencers within those companies to drive the outcomes that we're looking to drive? So that's kind of how we're approaching that.
Yeah, so that dovetails into content, right? And so obviously, if you're doing very bespoke content that's a very narrow part of your audience, and you're doing other content which is more general and educational, you also have to think about, well, is this content evergreen or semi-evergreen? Because in our industry, right, evergreen is like 6 months, right?
Yeah.
So
if that.
we're lucky.
You're lucky if you get it for 6 months.
And so how do you think through, because both capital and human capital are like a really rare resource at every company, including your own, right? And your own time and your own bandwidth. So how do you think through like this, your content creation editorial calendar and what gets created and then how you use it and how long you use it and all the factors that get into that equation?
Yeah. So I think admittedly at PubMatic, we are not a content engine, right? We're not churning out content to drive SEO rankings and to kind of fuel complex nurture flows. So we really take a more strategic approach, as we were just talking about. And I like to think about it as the intersection of kind of 3 circles within a Venn diagram. So first, what does our audience need to know? That is kind of our number one question that we ask when we're creating any piece of content. And so our goal as marketers is to deliver value to our clients and to our business. And so we need to be highlighting the trends or the themes that our clients want to know about. Also at PubMatic, we don't just talk to one audience. I mentioned the different customer types we have. We're also a public company, so we're communicating to investors. Sometimes we're communicating to potential employees. We're in a growth phase for our business. We're bringing on about 150 net new heads this year. So there's a lot of different audiences that as marketers, our content needs to speak to. So we think about for any piece that we're creating, who is that audience and what do they need to know? And the second circle is, what are we uniquely positioned to say, right? Everything that we do needs to be authentic, and it needs to highlight some aspect of differentiation or innovation or unique aspects of what we bring to the industry that they're not already hearing in the market. Like so many of the topics that we talk about and that our customers are curious about are so saturated from a content standpoint. So you need to find those interesting, unique angles that you can lean on to really say something new and interesting that's going to make people stop and think. So that's the second circle. And then lastly is, what does the market care about? So anything that we're creating, we want to see if we can amplify. So there are certain market trends, there are different channels that we can be leveraging to push content out and to kind of increase the engagement or awareness of that theme. And so kind of within those 3 circles, not every piece of content is going to hit all 3. Ideally, anything that we do will hit at least 2. And so that's kind of how we approach content in a broad sense. But then, as you mentioned, there are all of these different objectives that we're looking to drive, and content is a great channel for that. Especially companies like us that are innovating, that are at the forefront of the industry, we're able to talk about things that our customers are curious about and that others aren't necessarily doing at the level that we are. So that's a great opportunity that we have, but it can get overwhelming, as you mentioned. And so we approach content the same way that we approach really all of our marketing activities, and that's really looking at a campaign strategy. And so any given quarter, we have certain campaigns that as a marketing organization globally, we're all working towards, so that we get this kind of rising tide type of amplification of You're hearing the same story at events that you're seeing in content, that you're seeing in social. And all of our different channels are kind of working together to create this general sense of momentum around a theme or topic. And it's all meant to drive particular business outcomes. And so we want our content to be driving those outcomes and have an objective in mind that is going to tie into those three themes of audience, differentiator, and market. And so bringing all of those things together allows us to kind of streamline our focus and move the needle on the things that as a business we need to move forward.
One common thing in the tech industry in general, and that includes AdTech and MarTech, is this idea of the product launch, right? Which is sometimes a brand new product, sometimes it's a product extension, maybe it's an acquisition that got merged into a product. And so I'd love to hear your thinking about like planning and executing that product launch, right? Because some folks in the industry end up doing product launches which are vaporware, like it's not even ready yet, and already they're launched. Others wait until it's fully baked and then they launch it. And then there's all these other moving pieces strategically as you sort of plan and execute a product launch.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, like my background is in product marketing. So I think about these kind of launch strategies constantly, and it's a core aspect of how we think about technology marketing. And so I know kind of firsthand that any successful product launch is really built in all of the work that happens pre-launch. So it's all of that behind the scenes activity and strategy that goes into it. And so any successful product launch is really predicated on certain product marketing fundamentals. So one, you need to really understand your audience. You need to understand what they need, what's driving them to make decisions. You need to know what those challenges are. So that's the second one. You need to be addressing a real challenge in market. And then third, you need to spend the time on the positioning. You need to be able to tell a story that people are going to buy into and that they actually care about. So it's about all of that work on the back end, on the kind of messaging strategy and the product development, and even kind of going as far back as that informs whether a product launch is going to be successful. And so once you have those building blocks from those product marketing fundamentals, you can think about, okay, how are we going to make an impact from launch on? And so you think about the different channels that are at your disposal. Also, how can you make sure that you're aligned internally on what success looks like? Because if marketing and commercial and product all have three different views of what is a successful launch, you're going to fail. There's no way that you can be driving towards three goals simultaneously. And if any one of those stakeholders is disappointed, it's not a product launch, right? It's not successful. And so I think at PubMatic, as I mentioned earlier, last year we had two of our biggest product launches in our history. So between Activate and Convert, we really got kind of a crash course as a marketing organization on how to do product launches well. And I think we did a really great job. So let me use Activate as our example. So as I kind of touched on a little bit, one of the biggest driving forces in our development of Activate was the changing dynamics of the industry. And so the supply chain wasn't working for everyone, and it wasn't working for every type of media buy that was moving into automated ways of transacting. And so that was leaving opportunity on the table. And so this was a real challenge. We knew that media buyers who wanted to access premium CTV and video inventory, so that was one, know our audience, had a real problem doing it. There was too much cost associated. They didn't know exactly how to make it work. They were very confused about the technology partners that they should be using. So that was two. There was a real legitimate problem that we were looking to solve. And then we spent really kind of 18 months crafting the narrative alongside the product development. And so we approached it with a strategy that the product marketing team led around our customer advisory program. So we had clients and potential prospects that were part of the development phase, both the development of the product, but also the development of the story. And so we wanted to use kind of the client's needs and their language and their need statement to inform how we talk about the product and the value that we're delivering. And so that was critical. So we knew exactly what our target audience needed to hear from us as we were also building the product that they needed us to deliver. So that allowed us to really crack that third goal of having a strong differentiated kind of positioning story. And so we also knew what the barriers were and what the challenges were going to be that we were facing to have this story really hit. And the biggest one that we saw was education. So as I was saying, this was a new way of buying. We have this very established supply chain. You mentioned the Lumascape. Everyone knows that. They don't know all of the players in between, but they know that it goes publisher, SSP, exchange, DSP, buyer. And that is how every media buy was working. We needed to break up that whole notion of this static linear supply chain. And so we approached it really early on, probably a year pre-launch, starting to do some thought leadership. We put out white papers around the evolving supply chain. We started pushing out content, PR, media, stage, event presence, telling this story and seeding the need statement. And so by the time we got to product launch, that time frame, we had already been talking about this need for quite some time, and our customers knew that it is something that they needed to think about. And so then it came to, how do you actually take the product to market? So one, you have to think about timing. What is the point where you can most amplify your message? You talked about, do you do it pre-product readiness or when it's already fully baked? I think the sweet spot is somewhere in the middle, right? You don't want to wait until everything is figured out, because at that point, you want to be going broad. You want to be a GA. You already need to have some interest built up around it, but you need to be far enough along in the product development cycle where, as a business, you have confidence in what you're bringing to market. It's like the product needs to work. There could be some tweaks that you're still making, but you need to be authentic and you need to be telling the truth to your audience about what it is that you're able to deliver. So it's kind of in that middle. We usually do it in the beta launch stage, right? You're still testing some things out, but you're pretty confident in what you're bringing to market. And you've already worked through some of the positioning elements. So you know what the product is and what story you need to be telling. So with Activate, we tie the launch to our earnings. So as a public company, we've got this huge platform every quarter where we've got a lot of eyes on our business. And so we announced right before our Q2 earnings. And so we knew that we'd get that amplification. There would be a lot of media interest. There would be a lot of eyes on our business. And so we focused on client storytelling. So we had a number of agencies, publishers participating in our launch, highlighting their excitement to work with us and partner on building this technology. And those were those beta users. So we already had seeded some kind of business foundation and some opportunities for us before we went out and told that story. They were also all part of our customer advisory program. So we had been talking to them for some time around this product, around the story, and they were all kind of really bought in and excited. And then we also thought about, how do we keep momentum up around the launch, right? It's not just today we launch it, tomorrow we're on to something else. So we had a cadence of content that we were pushing out, whether it's blog posts or media stories. We had events. We had our folks around the globe on stage talking about the product and the value that it was delivering. And we had to keep that cadence up. So as we talked about, there's the initial sale. Similar to this, there's the initial launch, but you need to then be getting people to use it. You need to be consistently kind of generating that interest and excitement and have new things to talk about. So when we identified the product launch, when it was being announced in 2023, we also planned out a cadence of follow-up announcements that would be coming. And so that included case studies and customer success stories. So proof points that we were delivering on the promises that we made, but also new market expansions. So we announced expansion into APAC later in 2023, excuse me. We launched in Japan earlier this year, associated with our 10-year anniversary in the Japanese market. And so we had kind of a steady cadence of strategies to continue to drive that interest around the product launch. And simultaneously, we had more kind of internal account-based marketing strategies to actually drive usage. So how do we get the sale? How do we get people to actually use it? And so we need to be thinking about a product launch strategy really in this holistic sense, that it is not the press release announcing the product, it's everything that goes into it. And so we really take that holistic approach, which worked well for us.
Yeah, I really like the fact that your involvement of the customers started very early, right?
Yes.
Because, that allows you to co-create content, not waiting for the testimonial, but ahead of time, and you're sort of involving them in the product launch itself. I think a lot of marketers, tech marketers and others could learn from that and really engaging customer in your product launch strategies.
Yep.
I'd love to jump over to, the how should marketers ensure that diversity and inclusion are reflected in their marketing efforts and messaging without it seeming like greenwashing or just like that you see so many folks just like try to put a Band-Aid on it when it's not authentic.
Yeah. So I think authenticity is the number one thing that you need to be thinking about. You need to kind of walk the walk. We can't just talk the talk because people are going to see through that. There is so much out there and so much kind of focus on responsible aspects of marketing, whether it's diversity and inclusion. I know you talked about greenwashing, so sustainability kind of fits into this as well. And as marketers, we're like artists. So I come from a family of fine artists. I am not, so I kind of use the marketing, kind of the business side, but we're sculpting the face of our brand, and our reputation is a major part of how our customers think about us. So I know we talked about the differences earlier between B2B and B2C. All of the people that we're talking about are those C. They're the consumer in their daily lives, and they don't lose all of the things they care about when they step into their professional world. They're still bringing all of that with them. I think there was a recent ANA study that found that 64% of consumers say that they're motivated to support brands that advertise on TV with multicultural or diverse storylines and representation. Those 64 people still have those kind of desires and those priorities when they're at work. And so in a B2B context, we need to remember that and be speaking to our audiences in ways that they care about. And so when we think about it at PubMatic, we, again, as I mentioned earlier with the product launches, we take a holistic approach. So first, you got to think about who is representing your brand. And that comes down to hiring strategies. And it comes down to kind of who is the leadership of the company and what desires do they have to create inclusive and diverse teams. And so I think at PubMatic, we've been focused on diversity and inclusion for a very long time. So we put out our first DE&I report back in 2016. We're one of the first in our space to do so, talking about kind of where we were from a diversity standpoint, what programs and initiatives we were putting in place. And as of today, 75% of our board of directors are non-white or female. And so that far exceeds the industry benchmark. So when I talk about walking the walk, that is something that needs to be at the foundation of kind of your diversity and inclusion strategy as marketers. You can't be talking about something that you're not living within your organization. And so then once you have that foundation, and if you can confidently be talking about these themes based on the work that we're actually doing as a business, you need to think about how are you then presenting your brand to market. And so we think about that from the event stages that we put together. So whether it's the PubMatic spokespeople, we want to make sure that we have a diverse slate of candidates that are able to speak to lots of different aspects of our business and lots of different narratives that we're putting out. And as we build panels, I think our VP of events and experiences says it best when she's like, we should not be having panels. So there should not be all male panels, and especially all male white panels. We need to be making sure that the ways that we're telling stories on our stages are representative of the audiences that we're looking to engage. People want to see themselves reflected in the people that they're looking up to. And we have an opportunity, but also responsibility as marketers to be facilitating that for our brands. And so everything comes back to being true to your organization. There are some organizations that are really strong in DE&I and are not really doing too much in sustainability. Focus on the stuff that you're doing. So many of us are doing such incredible things that we should be proud of what we're doing and elevate those rather than trying to tag on to any kind of trending themes. I think one of the things that I personally have been excited about I come from a nonprofit background. That's where I started my career. So kind of the social and civic aspects of a lot of the responsible media conversations that have been bubbling up in our industry over the last few years, these are very kind of core to my identity and what motivates me. So I've had the opportunity to kind of take a leadership role within our company around our DE&I strategy, both how we tell the story externally as well as internally, and also on sustainability. So we put out our first global carbon footprint report last year. We're now working on our 2023 carbon footprint. We've submitted for science-based SBTI net zero targets. And so we are really doing all of that work. And then that allows us the opportunity to be champions for the industry, to be pushing things forward. But it all starts with being true to your organization and actually making some of those hard decisions internally about what we as an organization care about and what we're going to commit to. And then that gives marketers kind of free rein to tell the exciting stories that our audiences want to hear.
Yeah, that's great advice. I actually spun up the eMarketing Foundation this year because I felt like the top of the funnel on the education, in other words, getting to people early who might not be learning about, might not have the ability to go to college and learn these kinds of things or go to grad school and learn these kinds of things, as well as the retraining of people to be, knowledgeable in digital marketing. I felt like there was a gap there. So we haven't rolled out anything yet, but I saw a similar vacuum there with regards to, if you want to make DE&I hiring priority, you need to make sure that the people are skilled up, right?
Yep.
Be able to bring them in, right? And some organizations do that by having internal training. I sort of felt like the eMarketing Foundation maybe could do that as an external entity. We'll see.
Awesome. Yeah. And there's tons
there.
of organizations in our industry that are doing really incredible things. I was just on a session last night with She Runs It, who is an organization dedicated to kind of helping women advance in our industry. And they've got an amazing mentorship program and are also doing a lot around their diversity and inclusion 100. So providing a lot of benchmark data on where our industry is, where there are pockets to improve. And that also lets companies look at their own data within a framework, right? Everything is relative. We're not going to get to kind of perfect representation off the bat. So you need to know where you're doing well, where there are areas to improve, and what you need to do to kind of move everything forward. So I think having that data available is also really critical because we use data in all aspects of our businesses on a day-to-day basis. And so we need to be approaching things like diversity and inclusion and sustainability from the same kind of data-driven foundation.
Sure, absolutely. Once again, the cookie apocalypse can got kicked down the road. Do you feel like publishers and advertisers are ready at this point, given the fact that they've been given a lot of warnings ahead of time, or are they still not ready?
I mean, I don't think anybody is going to be ready until we need to be in a broad sense. I think we've built our industry on the concept of the cookie. There are so many businesses that have been built up around it. And so it's hard to get people to change their behavior. We know that is what marketers are trying to do all the time, right? So you need to spend the time to drive that behavior shift. I think we're seeing really exciting momentum. Even with the recent kind of delay back to 2025, I think a lot of companies are starting to realize that not only is this something that is inevitable, the timeline is what it is, but it's going to happen.
Right.
And as a society, we know it's going to happen. Consumers are demanding it. Consumers are the ones that are spending all of the money on all of our businesses and that are fueling our economy. And so we need to be listening to consumers and respecting them. We also need to be ensuring the longevity of our ecosystem, right? The open internet is so important. And advertising is the way that all of these businesses and the majority of these businesses are funded. We don't want to go to a world where everything is subscription-based and vast swaths of our community are not able to have access to information. That is not good for society. We also don't want a case where the walled gardens get full ownership of any information that we're able to get. So you need this independence, and we need the competition that exists within our industry to be able to deliver the content, the experiences, the entertainment, all of the things that as a society we value from the internet, from TV, from all of our media channels. And so we need to be doing whatever it takes to get our industry to a point where we can have consumer privacy and consumer respect, as well as addressable advertising that is going to deliver ROI that the brands need to continue to invest in the internet. Those things are critical to not only our ecosystem, but to our society. And so I think we're starting to wake up to the fact that we need to be innovating. We need to be leading. At PubMatic, we've been building technology for the last 4 years since this initially came up, right? I think we released our Identity Hub product, as well as what's now our Connect product, which allow for kind of alternative ID ingestion, as well as kind of bringing in all types of third-party and first-party data sets into the ecosystem to make that streamlined. We released those in 2020. So we've been continuing to improve and iterate on that from a technology side. But we've also been trying to highlight the value of some of these new technologies. And we found that in many cases, alternative IDs or kind of other data sets, first-party data, is delivering better advertiser performance than the third-party cookie. So from an ROI standpoint, I think we've already as an industry proved that we can get there. It's just that there are so many options available that I think we're just, a lot of buyers and even some publishers are getting overwhelmed with all of the choices, and they don't know which solutions to really invest behind. And so I think as ad tech companies, that's the biggest opportunity that we have. How can we make this easy for publishers and buyers to test, to innovate their businesses without needing to incur significant kind of resources and costs associated with readying their businesses for kind of this future? And so I think we're getting there. There's a lot of work that's still needed, a lot of collaboration across the industry, a lot of kind of co-innovation is a big thing that we're focused on. We just released an announcement a couple of weeks ago with Group M, where we're helping to power their Resolve technology. So bringing kind of AI-powered cohort modeling to their advertisers. And so there's a lot of exciting innovation that we're starting to see, a lot of it being led from tech partners, a lot of it being led from agencies, finding opportunities to differentiate for their businesses. And also with Google, like things like the Privacy Sandbox, we're really investing in that because we see it as a component of this kind of holistic approach that clients are going to need to take to safeguard their businesses, which is what we all need to be working towards.
Well, it's a crazy ecosystem for sure right now, in particular, with all the things going on from a technological change, cookies, AI, et cetera. But are there any specific issues that keep you awake at night that come to mind?
Sure. I mean, I'm going to take it back. We started talking about old school. I think people, making sure that as a team, I've got the right people that are empowered and motivated. And I think as CMOs, sometimes we're looked at as kind of the owners of the brand, but we're really leaders of a team. And so I think the things that kind of I think about and where I struggle and I'm trying to really improve from a personal standpoint is making sure that I'm continuing to motivate and empower and retain the amazing talent that I have on my team, and that I'm helping to facilitate that in terms of the client relationships that we're able to facilitate too. So it's going to go full circle to where I started, and it all comes down to the people and the relationships.
That's great advice. Thanks so much for joining me, Johanna. It was a pleasure catching up and getting your perspective on best practices in B2B marketing.
Thank you, Kevin. It was really great to be here.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.